reminds me of that. I lived in Melbourne for a while in the 80s. And at one point they would, the trams, they introduced an external loudspeaker. So you'd be walking down the street and you'd hear, "Get off the tram tracks." Who's speaking to me? It was like that. Okay, let's turn to page 1 and do the Presbyterial teachings. We begin by acknowledging the Whadjuk Noongar people, traditional custodians of the lands on which we dwell today, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. We extend that respect to Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander peoples everywhere. Sangye churan sage jonam lam janchu badu dabni kyap suchi dagi chenyen gi pe so nam ki chola pantre sangye drupa sho sangye churan sage jonam lam janchu badu dabni kyap suchi dagi chenyen gi pe so nam ki Trola panchi sange drupa sho sange churan zoye chonam la janchu badu dabni kapsuchi dagi chenyen gi pe sonam ki trola panchi sange drupa. Setting a most profound Mahayana motivation for engaging in these profound teachings on Tantra, introduction to that, and think how very fortunate we are due to accumulation of vast merits in past lifetimes to be able to have this opportunity, that all the conditions have come together for us to be here, to be able to follow our interest in engaging in these practices of secret mantra, secret tantra, which are guaranteed to lead one to full and complete enlightenment as swiftly as possible for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay, so here we are looking at today sources of inspiration. We'll start off with that anyway. The need for inspiration, sources of inspiration. And one of the ways in which we gain inspiration, and we touched on this last week, was the biographies of our great teachers of the past, of the present, if their biographies are there. So, for example, the Laudo Lama that refers to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, that the place where he was born was the same place as his previous incarnation. Couldn't say yes, she passed. It lived and meditated for at least for 30 years in, I think, the area now, the Laudo Gompa. And then Lama Zopa Rinpoche was recognized at a very young age. It was said that from a very young age, Rinpoche would have these little tea parties. And the people that he invited, his imaginary people he invited, that he offered tea to were his teachers in the past life and benefactors and so forth from Kunzang Yeshi, right? And so it was like, okay, take note, this kid has some recall there. Anyway, so I remember when this came out in 2005, I think, and this was something I did. I was reading some of the Dalai Lama every morning before breakfast, and it was like, oh, what's going to happen next? I wake up, oh, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? So that's sort of being enthused and inspired, we know those feelings. And of course, more recently, we have the 5 kilos, 2 tomes of big love of the biography of Lama Yeshe, our founder of FPMT and sort of teacher of many of our teachers and so forth. So yeah, that's been something that was, as it was being written and prepared for publication, we used to have the Mandala magazine in FPMT, and it was sort of serialized in that. And then now we have some copies out there at least. There's 2 big tomes, maybe people have read. Yeah, as I said, 5 kilos worth of paper. Well, I guess there was a lot to say. And so we can also look at our own sources of inspiration. I think I mentioned last time Geshe Lama Konchok. Some people might have seen the film Unmistaken Child. Yeah. And the book that came out before the film was Unmistaken Child of Kopan. So this was about Punsog Rinpoche, which some people have met. He was had a few years of schooling here in Perth under the radar, in secret, with Geshe Zopa as his attendant. So Geshe Zopa was very, very close from a very young age with Geshe Lama Konchok and served him. And then subsequently, his reincarnation, in fact, he was the one, if you saw the movie, who was tasked with the job of finding the reincarnation. And then, they don't just say, okay, you found it. There's lots of checks and balances, which is, and in the end, His Holiness the Dalai Lama confirms whether this child is indeed that reincarnation anyway. So Geshe Lama, so the Unmistaken Child of Kopan, the book goes through all the incredible, massive practices and achievements of Geshe Lama Konchok. So it's really, really inspiring. The book is about the search for the reincarnation. I mean, the film is the search for the reincarnation, but the book is more about Geshe Lama Konchok. So that's a wonderful one to read as well. Or any other, that your biographies. Of course, we read the biography of biographies. There's a number of them. Lama Tsongkhapa. So it's really good to, sort of seek out these sources of inspiration, just like we do in any field of endeavor of people that we're inspired by. So, and so then, as Lama Yeshe says, that our a common problem that we all face in relation to spiritual matters is it just stays in our head and not in our heart. So when we engage with those beings who are sources of inspiration, it's like that heart connection. We talk about heart connection, where we maybe can't even put it into our words. And so, being caught up with how much we've studied at an intellectual level, even within the Dharma, speaking about, I've done the basic program, I've done the master's program, I've done this, I've done that, and whatever. And then, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say, well, I can tell how much people have understood about the lam-rim, and when he talks about understanding, he means having it in their heart. He said, I can see that by the way they behave. because if we keep it at an intellectual level, it doesn't make any change in our behavior. Right? So basically, then we haven't transformed anything in our mind, and we still remain with all our deluded states of mind, as Lama Yeshe says. So that we need what we call sources of inspiration or blessings, Jinla in Tibetan, for our mind, to be convinced in a sort of heartfelt way of the living experience and existence of potent spiritual reality in person. So someone like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for example. But we want to awaken that reality within ourselves, but observing those outside of ourselves, observing that in this day and age, so to speak, it's not just something of the past, that it's something that we can achieve ourselves. So when we talk about Jinlab, inspiration, sometimes we usually translate as blessing. And actually, that's another source of inspiration, is the film Blessings. I don't know if anyone's seen the film Blessings. So this is Gedchak nunnery in Tibet. And what happens is that their abbot travels around, Wandrak Rinpoche, travels around giving teachings and supporting them. He says, that's my job, it's to fund them. And what happens is half the nuns are in retreat for 3 years and the other half do all the looking after the place and everything. And then they switch. So every 3 years. And you see like 90, I remember reading a little bit about this. So I think she was 96 or 98. No, just amazing. They're basically living in seclusion and getting on with the practice. So we're not all going to be in that situation, but there can be sources of inspiration for us. We read those, just like I'm not going to ever be a professional tennis player, but it doesn't stop me, sort of admiring those who are, at the top of their game. Because until they take off their shoes, and then I think, ouch. I don't know if you've seen when they take off their shoes, they're like tortured. Anyway. So here we're talking about spiritual inspiration. So think about for yourself, who uplifts your mind, who brightens your mind, what are some of your sources of inspiration? Anyone want to name anyone? Yes, Susan.
It's not with, I don't think she's within our tradition, but she's the Tibetan Buddhist nun. And that's Pema Chodron.
Pema Chodron, yes. Yeah. Yeah, Pema Chodron has this way of, she's made a lot of the teachings very accessible. When things fall apart, name a few. Start where you are. So, start where you are. Yeah. Pema Chodron. And still alive. Where is she? Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. Yeah, in freezing cold. And many, many of her students then. Yeah. Anyone else got? I mean, you don't have to say.
Yeah. His Holiness.
Oh, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, most definitely. Of course, for me, and it's very, well, I think blissed out would be the word to take ordination with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And from, to my mind, Lama Zopa Rinpoche was not in any way an ordinary being. I mean, he had a body, human body, but, it was on some other level, on this level. Yeah. So we can, think about and read about our sources of inspiration, and that, it brings us closer because, I mean, you've named, because we're in the Dharma context, you've named people of this, sort of the Tibetan tradition who are exemplary in the world today. And it's getting harder to be that exemplary one in the world today, isn't it? Yeah.
I just a little story.
Please do.
Terrible. She's a Buddhist nun. She still comes and teaches, and she works in prisons.
Venerable Rabina.
Rabina. She's the one responsible for me.
Yeah, she's responsible for a lot of people being in the Gompa. Yeah. Yeah. Tenzin Palmo, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo. Yeah. Yeah.
What happened? I'm looking on the YouTube, but nothing. She came on, and then I thought, oh, I'll go and see. I'd be lovely to go and see this nun.
Yeah.
And I looked it up. She's down in Bunbury the following week. So I thought, okay, that's how it all.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. So these people that we connect with, we could say that they awaken our connection with the Dharma that we've had from past lives, and maybe even connection with them in past lives and so forth. We don't know. They know. Like Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, when she was very young, when she first went to, I think it was when she went to India, and her teacher recognized her and said, oh, since you've taken, it's a shame you've taken female form, but not really, because then he gave instructions about, supporting Buddhist women, women in general. That you've taken female form, and because of that, we can't be so close. But heart close, yes, but not physically close. So she never went on to say what role she played in a previous life. You might have said to her. Anyway. Yeah. So, Milarepa, yes. Yeah. All the prisoners love Milarepa too. Just like, oh, I didn't kill that many people. And got enlightened in the same lifetime and did all the austerities once he met my father. Just complete devotion to the Guru. And this is what we need, particularly with Tantra. So with Tantra is when that engagement with the spiritual master, teacher is absolutely vital. So it's the most, as I mentioned, Vajra master, once you take a tantric empowerment, they become, well, any level of even transmissions or vows or empowerments that you take, that person automatically becomes a teacher. They don't necessarily be your root teacher. You might have many Vajra masters even if you get follow the tantric path. So because different ones will bestow different initiations. So jumping ahead there. So it's the relationship between our Guru, our spiritual teacher, our guide, the outer Guru, as we talk about, with our own inner Guru, which is our own innate wisdom, that mind within ourselves, that at the moment is quite obscured by layers of confusion and so forth. So it's working on that heart connection. So that might be a lifelong relationship, for example, with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, any of these teachers that we have who are still alive, and we have that, close connection with them. Might be over decades, might be just one meeting. Could be just one meeting with a group. You've got that strong connection, or they awaken that strong connection, like you were saying. So you may never even see each other again, and yet that's put you on the path. And sometimes you might not even know their name. You just remember, I was there. And that happened. I have to say, from a soul, when I was getting Tundra, was here previously, and we just celebrated his birthday. You know, when I met him, he said, because these teachers say, and so where did you meet the Dharma? And so I had this memory, which was in the 1970s, early 70s. And in fact, he said, you need to investigate that. And I did. And it was what I thought it was, meeting Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, but it was that one-off. I went to that talk and I wanted to go with them straight away, but I didn't, right? But that sort of awakening. Fortunately, it didn't stay at that. Fortunately, it did. The conditions came together. But it can be like that. It could have stayed that one-off. Oh, there was this, immediate. They were talking about setting up what we now know as Chen Rezik. And I was like, I want to go. But I didn't. And people like Venerable Thubten did. So, yes, 1, 2. So, a yogic meditation. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Everything changes. Yes. Yeah. So different ways in that experience manifest. So what would you say are the effects of receiving that inspiration, blessing, whatever we want to call it? Anyway, it's something for us to think about. Well, you said everything turned upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, would you mind speaking up? There's
sorry.
people online as well, just to hear.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
I was
Thank you.
saying that it was a very big Kriya.
Mm.
And I completely turned the way I initially I forgot them. They just changed.
So the condition for us to receive such inspiration, because those sources of inspiration, but for us to actually have that activated or receive that or awakened or however we want to say it, is this mental factor of Shrida, which is literally placing our heart upon. So we generally translate that as something like trust or confidence or faith or conviction and so forth. And so this factor of faith has different levels of development. So there's what's called clarifying faith, and that's described here like a water purifying gem. Water purifying gem. I don't know if people have the little it's a Guru Rinpoche, I think. The mantra on the little crystal. That crystal with the mantra etched on it.
That you put in the water.
That you put in the water purifier. So it's like one of those water purifying gem that clears away the murkiness of water and reveals its clarity. Right. So we use that analogy for the mind, like we had different analogies last week. So when that faith arises, the murkiness of the mind is clear away. It's like, oh, it's like a light bulb goes on, or we feel that warmth in our heart, or we feel blissed out, or whatever. Everything turns upside down. Whatever. Susan, you've had a
I'm wondering why one's attracted to two different
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
reasons or functions.
Yeah. Yes. Well, the way that I see it, I mean, we are advised to, stick with one tradition, basically so our minds don't get confused, because different ways, I mean, it's all the Buddha's teachings, but different ways or different nuances. But that doesn't mean, just keep your mind open.
Yeah.
What we're advised to do is not go into, as Lama Yeshe would say, the Dharma supermarket and go, I'll have a bit of this and a bit of this and a bit of this and mix it all up. That's, but if you find that,
Well,
then that's fine.
and I feel like they fulfill two different functions.
Yeah.
Letting Buddhism, because of all the teachings.
Yes.
Pathway, it's very grounding.
Yes.
The other thing is Zen.
Yeah.
Which is really, for me,
Perfect.
is much more like meditation.
Yes.
I mean, I don't mean this isn't,
No.
but it's just like two different.
Well, one supports the other, and that's what you're saying. And like within the Zen, I mean, you're not alone, even at this center, in being, somebody who combines both Zen and Buddhism. Yeah, not a problem. Yeah. So then aspiring faith is the one where you say, oh, I want to be like that. We look at the goal to be attained, we read Milarepa's story, we read whoever's and say, I'm going to attain that. So that's possible, right? And then the faith of conviction makes that stronger through contemplating the teachings of the Buddha. Then arises a strong sense of conviction or unshakable faith. And at some levels, we've already got that, because here we are and we're still here, like wanting more teachings, wanting more understanding, wanting to put into practice. So we've referred to this quite a bit, so I'm sure we've all heard this before from the Buddha, as the wise test gold by burning it, cutting it, rubbing it on a piece of touchstone. So touchstone is it's a black stone like flint, and it was used to test the purity of gold. So there'd be by the streak left on the stone by rubbing it on the stone. Okay. So that verified its purity. So just like that, are you to accept my words after examining them and not merely out of regard for me? So as the Buddha said, then we get a faith of conviction because we connect it with our own experience. It's not just at a head level, it's at a heart level. We sort of like we have this, it's unshakable, it's irreversible faith. And then to progress on the tantric path, because the spiritual teacher, the spiritual guide is the most important one, as we said, that outer guru connecting with our inner guru. We need that meeting of the inner and outer gurus. So it's like our own potential for enlightenment is energized or activated, empowered, whatever words we want to say, and inspired by contact with somebody who has already developed that fully, that we have perfect faith and trust in. Okay. So, and then each tantric once we take an empowerment, we have a practice which is called a sadhana. It might be a page long, it might be quite thick, however long. It literally means, we say it's our practice, but it literally means method of accomplishment. And that focuses on whichever deity So it's a Chenrezig empowerment, Vajrasattva empowerment, Tara empowerment, and so forth. Which each one of which embody a particular aspect of the fully evolved, enlightened mind. So like Manjushri would be what? Wisdom. Tara, depending on, well, I have 21 brain Taras over here. Taras all had a bath yesterday. We had a cleaning bee, and offering a bath to the Buddhas is actually a ritual that is done. In some traditions, we have that bathing the baby Buddha. So yes, they were all, so they look pretty happy. We had a good bath. Yes, where we're at. So these different aspects of the fully enlightened mind. So Chenrezig would be focusing on cultivating compassion, or medicine Buddha in relation to healing. And like Lama Zopa's book on that, ultimate healing. So placing it in that context. So, and then that deity, the fully realized mind of that deity, creates its own divine abode. So we have referred to this, we generally refer to it as the mandala. Like at the beginning, we did a mandala offering, right? Which is visualizing everything ordinary transforming into a pure land of a Buddha. So we're doing that already. And the fully, it's like that mind creates their own, like Tara has her mandala and Chenrezig has Chenrezig's mandala, etc. Within which it functions to benefit others. And the deity and the combination, usually it's like the supported and supporting mandala, the deity and the environment, the mandala. They're both actually known as the mandala. So to actualize that, a particular deity within ourselves, we first introduced to their mandala through an empowerment by a qualified tantric master. So within that, for example, sort of symbolically, it's not up there now. We had the mandala house because we did a medicine Buddha. So when you enter this gompa, you're entering by the eastern door, and this is the west, so you're facing west. So when you take an empowerment, it's like the Vajra Master, the Guru, takes you by the hand and introduces you to it. There's some things that happened before, but then entering via the eastern door. So all of these representations that we have of the mandala of Chenrezig or Manjushri or Yamantaka or anyway, or any of these deities have their own specific abode. And if any of you have been like either at Kopan up above the main Gompa, I think it's the one level up, and you'll see there's a 3D representation. So you can circumambulate the whole mandala and see all the bits, every little element in there. Similarly, in the monasteries in southern India, and similarly in His Holiness compound in the Kalachakra temple compound. So it's wonderful to have these 3D representations so that we can actually look at all the, and they're big enough, not just what you see on a card that you can't even see the bits of, they're quite big. So you can see the people and the animals and the this and that and all the steps going up and everything like that. And each has specific dimensions and so forth. So this has come out of the realizations of that holy being, like transforming that environment into a pure land. So it's always, it can also be, it is very, say, inspiring to also read those as well. Just going to check here. I was going to. Just let me check here. No, this doesn't go through the actual borrowed. It goes through the deity. Okay. Yeah, but again, yeah, no, it's, yeah, there is a black and white picture. So, as I said, each one creates its own abode to benefit others. And if we want to actualize a particular deity in ourselves, we get introduced into that mandala, so that it's, you know, there's some practices that we do without being, if you like, introduced in the mandala, like we might be given a transmission of their mantra or so forth. And so that's fine. We haven't yet had an empowerment, but we have a blessing of when we recite the mantra. And there are many mantras we recite without necessarily having a transmission, but also it's like when you have a transmission of any kind, it's also awakening the blessings of that. Okay. All right. So let's go from head to heart. We'll do a brief meditation. Settling in, settling down, focusing on your breath, being comfortable, well supported, grounded to the earth below. And just being aware of the natural comings and goings of the breath, allowing your body and mind to settle into the present moment. A lot of Tantra involves visualization, so I'm going to guide you through this imaginary journey. Take a inner trip, an imaginary journey to meet your inner Buddha. So first of all, imagine you're in a busy shopping mall full of people, activities, merchandise, and just observing the reality of our human life reflected in the expressions and actions of people around. Their anxieties, hopes, fears, desires, dreams, disappointments, happiness, suffering. It's like a bustling shopping mall of diversity. And then slowly turn around and walk out of the shopping mall, leave your ordinary worldly concerns behind. And let's say that you're picking a scenic route to walk along. Maybe into the beach or by an ocean, park, or mountain. And feel yourself being drawn towards something that feels more vast, more deep. And that's symbolized by a Bodhi tree in the distance. And as you get closer and closer towards this magnificent Bodhi tree, take in the setting of your imminent encounter with the source of enlightened wisdom. What are the sights, sounds, experiences in this sacred ground, in this pure ground, pure land of the Buddha? And sit yourself down close to your inner. And let it take form, a physical form that is recognizable, that is approachable. Maybe your guru, spiritual teacher, maybe Buddha Shakyamuni or any other deity. And open your heart to receive the inspiration in this moment. Maybe it's in the form of light, maybe a smile, maybe a series of questions and answers, or a mere simple presence, connection, connected. And hold, gather in that purity, that heart connection, anything positive, beneficial from this very brief reflection. Thinking this is my Buddha field, this is my purity. And hold that, cherish that dearly with your inner Buddha, innate Buddha nature. This precious realm at the heart of your being. Okay, and then when you're ready, open your eyes, adjust to the light sounds around you. If you can maintain that pure abode, go for it. They do say in a pure land, all the sounds of mantra, all beings are deities. The total environment is this pure mandala sort of field. Okay, how'd you go with that? Mm-hmm. Yes, you can speak. Very beautiful.
Nice to be able to
Yes.
much happy where I am.
Yeah, and so, but for now, because it's like, yeah, being awakening those inspirations in our own mind. Yeah, and then it can get into very much, very great detail. For example, with the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, which is a practice that we do. Lama Zopa Rinpoche has written a commentary on that, and there's very, very extensive explanation, which all of us without having an endowment can read. And there are commonalities, like all the birds, commonalities across all mandalas, something like the birds singing the Dharma, and the softness of the ground. I think Lamzopa Rinpoche was like in Australia one time and talking about like springy mattresses, how soft it was, bouncy mattresses, and kookaburras, kookaburras singing the Dharma. Yeah. Anybody else wanted to mention anything? Okay, so that's just sort of like a very, very slight taste. And so in order to do this, you can see we're transforming what's ordinary, like what would be a shopping mall. Imagine, sort of all the beings in there, like we could transform that into a celestial abode. That would be challenging, so go for it. I'm not sure what you do with all the transactions that have there, what they become. Offerings. Well, you can go in there and offer all the lights, offer all the beauty, offer all the perfumes. I remember going into it. I was flying with a Dharma friend, and she said, "Oh, I just love to go into the perfume shop and just do the trial of the perfume." And I thought, okay, I've got no reason to be in a perfume shop. I'm like, no, don't wear perfumes and whatever. And then it's like, no, but I can offer it. I can offer it. We can do that. Train our mind to create a place of beauty. And so, as Lama Yeshe says, we've got to overthrow the tyranny of ordinary appearance. And he observes that, we remain trapped in this dukkha, this samsara, circle of dissatisfaction, because our view of reality is narrow and suffocating. So we hold on to a very limited and limiting view of who we are. Oh, I couldn't possibly do that. Oh, I'm no good. But we're very good at beating ourselves up because we've done that lifetime after lifetime. Where has it got us? Well, we must have had the Dharma in there somewhere because here we are. But the result of all of this limiting is our self-image becomes very oppressive, very low, negative, and we feel inadequate and hopeless. Like the example of His Holiness the Dalai Lama meeting with all these top scientists, and one of them talked about low self-esteem. And it was in the early days of their dialogues, and His Holiness like, low self-esteem, what is that? And his translator finally found the words in Tibetan because it wasn't a concept that he was aware of. And he took his robe, threw them over his head and cried. And then he took it down and said, but why would human beings do that to themselves? Oh no, what happened before that? Sorry. He said, who else has this low self-esteem? Every single one in the audience put up their hand. That's when he cried. And that's when he said, why would human beings do this to ourselves? And we don't think like that, do we? That I'm doing this to myself. I'm limiting myself. I'm putting myself down. But in fact, so Tantra blows that out of the water. So it challenges this very low self-esteem or low opinion of our potential, our human potential. And it shows us this view that we can accomplish, this beautiful abode, this beautiful mind, this beautiful being, deities, dakas, dakinis, so forth. And at all levels of Tantra, this kicks in. It's dissolving our ordinary concept of ourselves. And then we dissolve that, and then we're left with an empty space. And from that, all these concepts of ordinariness have disappeared. And from that, we rise in a glorious light body of a Buddha, a holy deity, which is a manifestation of our own innate clarity, wisdom, and so forth, of our true being, our inner being. So Lam Yeshe says, it's a simple truth that we identify ourselves as being fundamentally pure, strong, capable. Just think when you were thinking about sources of inspiration, when you were doing that brief meditation, transforming the environment, connecting with your own inner Buddha and the outer Buddha through the world, through the Buddha. So, you know, that, what do you say? Pure, strong, capable, we will actually develop these qualities. But if we continue to think of ourselves as dull and foolish, that's what we'll get. That's what we'll become. You know, I'm no good, I'm no good, I'm no good. You know, a friend of mine, is an Aboriginal poet and writer. Yeah, well, he's a writer, obviously, with Aboriginal poet. When he was going to school, he was very bright, but the stereotype was that he was very stupid, right? And so he had a bad time at school, and he put up his hands out of keenness and so forth. And his teacher would send him up the back and then say to the other students, you want to be dull and stupid like Newland, you know, up the back. So he was shamed all the time, not encouraged. But he didn't let that affect him. I mean, it did affect him, but he didn't let that basically frame his sense of who he was. And so he got into university, he did the sort of, whatever, maybe it's mature age, maybe it's a special program, did creative writing, became a great poet, and then was, you know, also very much working in the prison system, with people in prison, and became, you know, he'd be a reading at every writers' festival there was. So it's that sense of, no, I'm not going to let that define me. So whatever inner talk we have, that is our ordinary appearances. This is what we're working with. This is our grist for the mill of Tantra. This is the work of Tantra. So when we talk about ordinary appearances, seeing things as they are ordinarily in the world, but it's seeing them objectively, inherently as impure, forever separated from this blissful, enlightened wisdom, which is our very true nature, the true nature of our souls, the true nature of all beings. And this is what our teachers connect with. This is what this is what they see. This is what they connect with. This is what they awaken. So grasping at that is grasping at ordinary appearances is clinging to these, well, that's just how things are. And we take that as true. And due to that, we develop all the entourage of afflictions, you know, of attachment, aversion, confusion, so forth. And they continue to keep us stuck in this cyclic existence. So it's like we box ourselves in, we limit our own possibilities of who or what we can become. And because we're working with our mind, you might say, well, this ordinary body is not going to transform. But what is a body of a Buddha? But the full transformed body of our ordinary aggregates. If you think of the story of Shakyamuni Buddha, you know, being a prince and so forth, and then through his own, you know, showing the path, and under that Bodhi tree arising as an enlightened being. So, you know, we can become that perfectly pure enlightened being, capable of anything, actually beyond our wildest dream, beyond our imagining. And in the Heart Sutra, well, not the Heart Sutra, when that's condensed down into a few lines, it's like inexpressible, inconceivable perfection of wisdom. So it's sort of can't be articulated. So the remedy to this mind of seeing everything, boxing ourselves in, is to develop a clear sense of ourself as an enlightened deity. And this is what we do when we take an tantric empowerment. And this strong confidence that that is indeed our true nature. And this is what we call having divine pride. But if we take divine pride in an ordinary way, then it's not divine pride, it's ordinary pride, arrogance, and so forth. So people can get very easily confused about this divine pride. It's connecting with our true essence. It's not like, oh, I'm a Buddha, I hang up my shingle, come follow me. As I say, run in the other direction if you ever hear anyone say anything like that. I've experienced a couple of times people writing emails, not recently, not in decades actually, which is a relief. Well, now I'm an enlightened being, what do I do? So, well, now you're an enlightened being, you tell me. Because my answer might be see a psychiatrist, but yeah. So, but we cultivate the awakening of our true nature as an enlightened Buddha. And within that, we emanate this universe, this mandala, whether it's the pure environment, the pure inhabitants, and so forth. And we have within that abode blissful enjoyment, imagining all our senses as purified, not me grasping at chocolate, but that, sort of, we'll say that on top of the deliciousness that we experience, because chocolate is not inherently delicious, I'm just saying, as a non-chocolate eater, not inherently delicious, but we impute all this stuff on. But, if we actually visualize it being purified, transformed into a crease, into an ocean of nectar, and this is what we do when we do the food offering prayer, then the blisses are added bonus. So we're sort of bringing this result into the path of experiencing that. So you can bliss out enjoying a chocolate, not oh, I shouldn't have. No, that's very ordinary mind. Have it and enjoy it. Right? Or don't have it. But if you can have it, enjoy it. And this is what that sort of enjoyment factor, joy factor or bliss factor is what is very much the path of Tantra. We have a blissful enjoyment through our senses, visualizing them being purified and, all the food and drink, the environment, everything being purified. And on the basis of this, not just for our own welfare, what we're doing is totally counteracting the neurotic, self-limiting mind and engaging with a more powerful mind for the benefit of the welfare of all beings. So it's not just, oh, I want to feel good at all. That's not what it's about. And then as we said, the drawings that we have of mandalas depict this celestial palace, all the decorative objects, all the dakinis around and everything, all the protective boundaries there are. And we can only read about usually a specific mandala like that once we have an empowerment, and then we can get commentaries about that. So this practice of connecting with this divine reality or, our inner Buddha nature, divine personality, being within an enlightened mandala ripens that seed. It ripens the seed that's sown in the empowerment itself. In other words, we do this practice again and again because maybe you experience with that very brief meditation, it doesn't take long after that taste of beauty for that to fade and everything's very ordinary again. So we do this practice, whatever practice, we might have a commitment to do that on a daily basis. With some tantric masters and with some occasions, it might be a mantra commitment to do so many malas or many padme hungs, for example, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche's last time of visiting Hayagriva was in 2006, and Rinpoche bestowed the Chenrezig, great Chenrezig empowerment. So that went over 2 days. And the commitment from that wasn't the daily practice, was a mala, one mala of Om Mani Padme Hum. And then Rinpoche said, and or, so there was an option, or 3 nyungnes, a couple of you have done nyungnes, I know, 3 nyungnes, which I call the extreme sport of Tibetan Buddhism, where you're doing more than one mala of Om Mani Padme Hums, you're doing lots of mantra recitation, you're doing lots of prostrations. First day you take precepts, so you only have 1 meal. The next day you have nil by mouth. No food, no drink. That's the extreme part. And you're still doing all those practices, okay? It's an incredibly powerful purification practice. So this Nyungne practice was developed by thank you, Bhikshuni Lakshmi, Blonde Palmo, Bhikshuni Lakshmi. So she, anyway, she did many of these Nyungne practices and cured herself of leprosy. And she started to glow, such that people in town were saying, she's up to no good. You can't look that good unless you're doing something naughty. Go figure. Anyway, so she went in, the town square, and she said, okay, if what I'm going to do is cut off my head, please don't do this. Or don't do it here, please. You're only allowed to do this if you're a being of, those higher bodhisattva grounds or Buddha ground, where cutting off your head is as inconsequential as a leaf falling from a tree. So we're forbidden. Okay, I want that clear. Not that I think anyone's going to go home and do it, but, very clear that we are forbidden to do that. Because we hear these stories of, like Arya Sangha cutting a bit of his thigh and the Buddha offering his own life to the tigress and so forth. Yeah, because it was a Buddha. Then the body is just a mere, it's not a body or an ordinary form. Okay, she said, so then I'm going to cut off my head, and if I'm not telling the truth, the head won't come back onto my body. But if I am telling the truth, it will. So then she cut off the head. What happened? Head came back, and then everybody wanted to know how, okay, please, we want to be your students. So this practice is a very powerful purification practice in which there's no cutting of heads, no cutting of anything. But there is, as you heard, practice of austerities. And so, through that, she became even greater, amazing being. So as Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, doing the Nyungne for just 2 days is as effective as a 3 months of other purification practice, an extremely powerful healing illness, leprosy, for example, purifying negative karma, and opening the heart of compassion, because it's all based on Chenrezig practice. A very, very beautiful practice. And I'm just sort of laboring this point because for anybody who's been doing discovering Buddhism, one of the requirements in the final module, which is the experiential special integration practices, is to do 3 nyungnes, which is what Lama Zopa Rinpoche said at that time when he gave Chenrezig. 1 mala for the rest of your life, or 3 nyungnes within 5 years, which is doable. You know, that was quite a long period of time. So obviously everyone's busy doing their malas just in case they don't get to do nyungnes. This way it's spelled is N-Y, can you see that? No, I can't either at a distance. N-Y-U-N-G, and then N-A with the 2 dots above. Sometimes it's just N-E. Yeah, it'll be spelled different ways, but that is how it's spelled. It means abiding in the retreat. That literally means abiding in retreat. Okay. So this, you know, by doing whatever practice again and again, and there are some people who do, like, I'm not sure if they're doing at the moment, like literally at this moment, but at I think they are. Institute Vajrayogini, Venerable Shah leads this 108 nyungnes, which takes quite some months. And at least one of our Australian friends has, you know, she did one time, and then she was contemplating going back another time, but Lama Zopa Rinpoche gave her some different instructions, which actually went to Sum. Rinpoche said, Sum is where Rinpoche got the altitude sickness that ended up in his passing. And Rinpoche, before that, had said for her to go to Sum, go to the nunnery, and she did some nyungnes there. That was a book nuns, nyungne nuns. One has done over 1,000 nyungnes, so forth. Anyway, so he said to go there and do that, and he said to walk, not to fly, to walk. So 3 days. I said, how many pairs of shoes did you go through? She said 2. So before she went, she was training at the gym and doing all of this, and now she's back training at the gym to do the next installment. Yeah. Okay, so what we're doing is we're practicing what will eventually become a reality. We will eventually become that deity. We will eventually have our own Buddha field, our own pure environment. And so this is dependent on the level of the Tantra, the empowerment, and we haven't talked about those yet, we will subsequently, not today. Depending on the level, it's either called yoga with signs, as in here, or in highest yoga tantra, it's called generation stage. So in other words, you're doing the practice, doing all the visualizations that would eventually become the actual reality, which is then completion stage in highest yoga tantra. Okay, don't need to go into that in detail. So this practice of a sadhana, a practice text, literally means disciplined and dedicated practice. Disciplined and dedicated practice. And, or as I said earlier, a method of accomplishment. So this usually is a text, which some prayers, we have preliminary prayers to the actual things like making mandala offerings, 7-limb prayer, or first of all, establishing the field of merit, refuge, bodhicitta. So these different 4 immeasurables, these are all called preliminaries. And then the actual text, which is the meditation, includes the meditation instructions given by that realized master. Right? When I was here, before I moved here, so I think it was 2008 or 2008. 2009, anyway, sometime, Chodron Rinpoche bestowed the Yamantaka empowerment here. And in the mornings before, I don't know how many mornings, maybe it was 2 mornings, Gendundra at the back would go through the visualization of the mandala. And I'm like, he's in the mandala. I mean, I would have no idea, I have no clairvoyance, but his actual description of that really brought it to life very powerful. You never forget that. So what we're doing at the heart of all of this is we're transforming our ordinary body, speech, and mind into that of a deity. So we view our body as pure. So generally, like when in the Sutra path, we talk about how we visualize as pure the impure, and we correct that so that we focus on the body's impurities. So that's that. But in the tantric path, we view our body as pure. When we say as pure, made of light, in the aspect of the deity arising in that form. So, and this includes viewing our environment and everyone else. So I think about this Gompa and everyone in the divine form, right? So that's pretty hard, especially if somebody's yelling at you and being obnoxious. Just saying. It's a hard yard. And we view our speech as pure. That's much easier. So the speech resonating in the form of mantra. So it's beautifully, I love the descriptions here. So we talked about the yoga of signs. So this happens in the Nyingma. There's different yogas of signs. So the deity of sound, So meditate on the deity of sound. From the sphere of emptiness, the tone of the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum resounds, pervading the realm of space. So it's like we're being showered by Om Mani Padme Hum throughout. It's resonating throughout all of space. We can already visualize that, for example, when we're reciting that mantra or turning the prayer wheels. They get millions and billions of Om Mani Padme Hums going out into the environment. Speaking of which, did you notice the prayer flowers? Thank you, Rob, for noticing.
Colin pointed out.
Colin, thank you for noticing. Anybody else notice? No idea what I'm saying. In the heat yesterday, our dear Rob and John put up the new prayer flags outside. So you will see it when you go out for Losar. You know, last weekend when Gen Jundrup was here, he said, oh, the prayer flags need replacing. So yes, we're doing that for Losar. Anyway, yesterday was a prayer flag day. Today's a prayer flag day. So I'm going to put up some other ones today. We visualize the prayers being, you know, of the text being carried on the wind, bringing all the sort of positive energy in the environment. So this is what we're doing through our practice. Okay, this is my favorite one, the deity of syllables. Syllables. My mind in the aspect of undifferentiable suchness, emptiness, of myself and the deity, in this case would be Chen Rezig, having taken the empowerment, you can do that, becomes a moon mandala, so moon cushion, which is bodhicitta, upon which the very aspect of the tone of the mantra resounding in space, which we've just visualized, is set down, having the form of written syllables, often depending on written syllables, the sounds and the written letters mixing like very pure mercury adhering to grains of gold. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? It's part of your beautiful abode. Yeah. So we do that to think of our, imagine we think of all of our speech like very pure, very pure mercury adhering to grains of gold. Whatever we say. We view our mind as pure. This is very challenging, isn't it? The very exalted wisdom of an enlightened being, where there's union of wisdom and method, so of wisdom and bodhicitta, we can say. So wisdom is the ultimate reality, like direct perception of ultimate reality. And that relates to the conventional level of bodhicitta, the method side. So we have conventional bodhicitta, engaging in beneficial activities for beings, and the two coming together is what we call ultimate bodhicitta. So far, so good. Just looking how much time. So, so then we have the practice of the three bodies of a Buddha, in which we're transforming death, the Bhado, intermediate state, and rebirth into the three bodies of a Buddha. So death is likened to the experience of falling asleep. And in fact, some of us, we've talked about previously, the 8 dissolutions of the time of death, that if we can keep the light of awareness on as we're falling asleep and see how far we can be aware of that occurring. Of course, we always can experience the earth element, I think, to some extent, that sort of dropping feeling, heaviness feeling, the blurring of the eyes and so forth. If you look at the descriptions, you can see that it's there in the dissolution of the earth element. And maybe that's as far as we get, but it's a good practice to do. And then when we're waking up, feeling ourselves being re-embodied. So death is like that experience of falling asleep. And the Bhado, or intermediate state between death and rebirth, is, we can think of it as dreaming. We have a dream body in our dreams. It's not the physical body, it's a sort of, it's an illusory body. So it's a dream body. And we can think about that being like being in the Bhado, and experiencing rebirth is like waking up and being re-embodied in the morning. Fortunately, re-embodied into the same body. So while sutta takes ego grasping ignorance, this innate ignorance, as the main obstacle to eliminate as we progress on the sutric path, Tantra identifies the main obstacle to overcome or purify are these 3: death, intermediate state, and rebirth. So we have a practice, for example, of one of the general practices we have is blessing of our speech, right? And that's done through mantras and so forth. But right at the very beginning of that practice in our regular prayer book, you go through dissolving everything into emptiness. And even without a tantric empowerment, we can do those dissolution and think, I'm arising as the best version of this. we can practice. We can lay the foundations for subsequent Tantra practice. Already the visualizations that we do in relation to Shakyamuni Buddha are very, provide a very strong grounding for Tantra. And then when we do the nyingnes as well, even we're visualizing in front, the deity visualized in front, if we don't have the empowerment, or any Tara, any deity practice where we're visualizing in front, we're familiarizing ourselves with those aspects. And we are indeed connecting with our own inner Tara, our own inner Chenrezig, our own inner Buddha, and so forth. Okay. Might leave it there for today. Otherwise, we'll go on to another section. Questions, comments? Good to go. So, what's your homework? All sounds are mantra. Visualizing a divine road. Just like Lama Zopa Rinpoche did with Nick Rebush right up there on Swayambhu. Swayambhu, anyone been to Swayambhu? Couple have been. So it's a natural crystal stupa inside that. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche says to circumambulate around the bottom. So I did that once. I don't know if either of you have done that. Took a few hours. And I turned every prayer wheel. Not only did it exert my shoulder, but my hands were black as black. So I thought, next time, wet ones. Just so if you're thinking of doing that, because inside is a crystal stupa. But then Lama Zopa Rinpoche was there up top with Nick Rebush, and he looked down and said, "What do you see?" Oh, honking traffic and filthy, dirty animals and people and litter and, just the ordinary stuff that's there. Rinpoche said, I see it pure light. So it takes a lot of work for us, but we can practice. Go into the shopping mall now. Don't, as Rinpoche said, don't shop. But we can think every time, every time we turn on a light, making offerings to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, that we can visualize making offerings of ourselves as a precious dharma to benefit others. We can do a lot of visualization right now, which is awakening our true nature, which is awakening everything that is positive in us is our true nature. Everything that is negative is just obscuring that with layers on top. I'll leave you with that homework. Oh, that homework comes for a few weeks now, doesn't it? Yes, next weekend we have Sharon teaching on karma. As he teaches on the Friday night, actually the whole program's online, isn't it? So that Friday morning, there's a sit-on country with our dear Aboriginal elder friend, Michael Wright. And Geshe-la did that last time here, and he said, all these years I've been coming to Australia, nobody ever told me anything about the sort of Indigenous history. So he was they had a beautiful connection. And then we go to lunch at Zamia. So if you're wanting to do the lunch thing, just make sure on where it says click for more info, it takes you to booking yourself in for lunch. Michael is actually sponsoring lunch for whoever, but we need numbers for the reservation. Do we need them by a certain time? Do you know? Did he know? Maybe the earlier the better, if you know you're going to lunch.
Calendar has an RSVP, which is an email to the owner.
Okay, there's an RSVP. So no cost involved. And then Friday evening, the teaching here, Peace in a Storm.
Peace in
Life storms. and then karma on the weekend. So that's wonderful thing. So then we have a couple of weeks when I'm in Bangalore. So you got a few weeks to practice and come back in your day, who knows? Okay, dedicate. So page, what is that? 8. Kevadino Buddha Alama Sangye Robyone Rohua Chikyang Malu Ne Salagu Shu Janchu Sencho Rinpoche Ma Ke Panam Ge Puji Ge Panyam Pame Payam Gone Gundu Pawa Shu. Next page, pray for the long life of His Holiness Adela. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling Jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. A prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher, an assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Prachika Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands. Please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings. Through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great ways of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. And on life prayer for Tenzin Ursul Rinpoche. Lord of Dharma, who in accordance with the various dispositions of those to be subdued, makes clear in the light of your well-spoken advice the sacred Ganden tradition, essence of Buddha's teachings. Foremost and holy Lama, to you are supreme. We make this prayer of supplication. Lama, please, please live well. Are you doing the recording stop or not?